Scott here?
You know what?
I was thinking we should break up or whatever.
Oh.
I'm a fault with.
Yo! Welcome to another Untimely review. This time we're talking about the gamer slacker who's living life on easy mode, Scott Pilgrim versus the world. Let's just get right into the story. So, major spoilers for Protagonist Syndrome, the movie. The logo intro starts this movie off great by doing what I love by having a special theme that's not in any other movie, which gives it some bonus points. But then we get some narration, so it's back to zero. Through this Drake and Josh ass font, we find out that our main character, this guy, Scotty Pills, is a 22-year-old dating a high schooler. Which, given newly found info, is a really bad coincidence. Also, this movie does my thing where characters get little cards, which I thought was a cool little original thing that I was doing, but obviously not. Oh yeah, Scott Pilgrim, a coward, and would definitely be on Discord calling women kitten. Through Scott and his homies' conversation, we find out that the only lady in the group isn't a creep, but she's still friends with him, so still creep by association. And we find out that his girlfriend is a 17-year-old named Knives. Deserves better than Scott. And while Knives is such a cool fucking name, I still don't like the circumstances that I had to meet her. She gets introduced to the rest of Scott's band, Kim Pine, resident hater, and Steven Stills. Wait a minute. Computer enhance. De-age. Oh my god, I cannot believe that the dude from Snow Day, the anklet-smelling weirdo, is in this movie, of all movies that I decided to review. I don't know if that's some kind of weird cosmic intervention since that video came out around this time last year, but this is truly a strange and unwanted turn of events. Oh yeah, and there's this other dude, Young Neo, which is literally just a joke for people who care about music. Who cares? And we get a cool little title card from their practice. Scott goes home to his roommate who he bunks with, and by bunks with, I mean they sleep in the same bed, which I think is pretty cool. No need to kiss the homies goodnight when you sleep together. So his roommate Wallace, resident sassy bitch, tells Scott's sister that he's dating a girl 1 year younger than her, and you know, people are having a negative reaction hearing it, but not negative enough for me. Anyway, Wallace and Scott go to pick Knives up from school, where then only Knives and Scott go to hang out because I guess Wallace just really couldn't deal with that situation. Which, understandable. We get some unnecessary Pac-Man lore, some sick knockoff ninja-themed DDR, or, for my potential younger audience, Friday Night Funkin', and then my baby girl Aubrey Plaza pops up as Julie Powers. Stock Aubrey Plaza character. If she stepped on me, I'd apologize. We then see Scott and Knives go for a walk to Scott's place, where we find out that he lives across the street from his parents, which is just financially irresponsible, or fiscally irresponsible? I don't know, I'm not looking it up. Scott has a weird dream. We find out that Wallace's boyfriend's name is also Scott, which is just a lovely situation to be in. Then, while at the library, Scott sees a prototype for an e-girl variant, and then just starts disassociating for the rest of the day until he ends up at Julie's party. He finds out that his mystery girl, Ramona Flowers, is also at the party and goes right into Predator mode, which with everything we know so far about him, is kinda his go-to mode. Scott finds her and immediately goes into his Pac-Man lore bag again, but because the vast majority of people under the age of like 35 do not care about Pac-Man, except this version.
Who was on crack?
It was a bad opening move. But now, Ramona Flowers.
Just let me feel it.
I'm about to bust.
Oh my, you are disgusting with your freaky ass.
That's up to her own Twitch. I definitely mean Twitch. So because Ramona is just way too cool for him, Scott is trying to get intel on her because everyone but him knows about her, and then everyone keeps telling him to break up with his high school girlfriend because the age difference they could deal with. But the potential adultery? Oh, no. Not in my good Christian neighborhood. Scott then gets a declaration of a duel in an email because this movie takes place during the early 2000s, and that's just how we did things back then, I guess. Knives pops up to hang out with Scott, and because he's only focused on Ramona, he's just tuning her out at this point. He doesn't break up with her though, because if you refer back to the card, he's a coward. We also find out about a battle of the bands, but more on that later. Sometime later, but not battle of the bands later, Ramona is trying to deliver a package to Scott because she works at Amazon, but ends up agreeing to hang out with him, not because she's into him from the jump or anything, but because he's our main character. They kind of hit it off. She invites him back to her place, and listen, I'm all for suspension of disbelief, but this whole sequence upsets me so much, so we're gonna be moving on.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Okay, now we're at the Battle of the Bands, and while Scott's band is performing, their song about sanitation work is cut short by the dude who emailed Scott the whole duel thing. We find out that this guy, Matthew Patel, is the first of Ramona's evil exes. Why he considers himself evil, I don't know yet, but Matthew Patel, he's got some fire moves.
It's because he uses fire in the fight. He has fire moves. Like, okay.
Too bad he gets knocked out pretty easily, but that's usually how first bosses go anyway, I guess. Ramona fills Scott in on the whole battle system that's required to date her, and this has absolutely nothing to do with the movie itself, but I would fight even more than just 7 people for you, so count your days, Obi-Wan. I will find you. Okay, back to the movie. So Wallace gives Scott an ultimatum that he has to break up with Knives that day, or he tells Ramona about Knives. Finally, Scott breaks up with her, but it's only after she tells him that she's in love with him, and it's also her birthday like that day too, so you know. Real hard day for her. Anyway, Scott made some garlic bread, learned that bread makes you fat, and forces Ramona to go for a walk because he's insecure about his hair. That walk takes them to where a movie is being filmed, and wouldn't you know it, one of Ramona's evil exes is also there. So, Lucas Lee. What if Chris Evans never left Boston? Now, I haven't talked about the humor in this movie yet, so let me play this clip really quick.
What's up? How's life? He seems nice.
As you can see, it's wonderful. So Scott's fighting Lucas' stunt team because he's just not worth his time, but then he beats all 7 of them off screen because there's literally no way that he could have actually done this. But because Scott knows that he won't be able to beat Lucas, he tricks him into doing a dangerous grind by using the most potent move possible, telling a dude that girls are watching. Obviously, Lucas has to stunt for the ladies, but then he ends up bailing so hard he explodes, but then Ramona dipped out and isn't returning Scott's calls, but this mysterious woman, Envy/Nat, that broke Scott's heart comes a-calling, and it is a sexy call. Not for them, but Brie Larson whispering?
Oh.
Man. Anyway, Scott's ducking Knives, meets this spooky chick, but bumps into Ramona at a coffee shop because this is a story of coincidences. And then Envy also pops up at this coffee shop because, again, coincidences. But also Envy Adams, a musical marvel, girl boss incarnate, and she could also step on. Steven, tells the band that Envy asked them to open up for her band, so that's a thing that's happening now. And we also see Knives' way to get back at Scott. At the show, Sex Ba-Bombed, Scott's inner R. Kelly comes out in exactly the way you think it would.
How old is she? I'm gonna pee on her.
And Brie Larson captivates my ears, eyes, and heart with her performance. Unfortunately though, after the performance, there's an awkward meetup between exes, Scott and Envy, but also Todd and Ramona. Now, while the scene is very tense and Knives is being an annoying fangirl saying things that she shouldn't, I still don't think Todd should have used the strength of Krypton to knock the hair color out of this 17-year-old, but hey, they obviously live in a different world than me. Anyway, we get the best endorsement of veganism I've ever seen. We get Todd's backstory, and oh, by the way, Todd. What if a vegan made a superhero? So because Scott also can't beat Todd in a fight because of his vegan-imposed psychic powers, Scott challenges him to a base battle, and would you look at that, he's not better than him at that either, but Scott tricks him into drinking milk, so the vegan police task force led by the Punisher comes in to take his vegan powers away. Todd cries over his CGI hair, and then Scott headbutts him into change. Everyone gets a little break to chill out before Scott asks Ramona if she's dated anyone who isn't a total ass, and considering everything we know about Scott, no she hasn't. Then that spooky chick from earlier pops up again, and to avoid Scott from having to beat up a woman because, come on, he's already got so many things going against him, Ramona steps in to fight Roxy. She's a ninja. There's really not much more to say. Unfortunately, Roxy has to be beaten by Scott's hands because of the League's rules. I didn't talk about it until now, but all the evil exes have a league dedicated to controlling Ramona's love life, and now I see why they're all evil. To help out, Ramona uses Scott like a biomech to fight Roxy, which works for a few combos, but then once they're separated, Scott has to touch Roxy's no-no square behind her knee, which makes her bust before busting into coins, and it's at this point that I will stop trying to rationalize this movie and just enjoy this show. So after that fight, Ramona and Scott kinda have a fight, and they technically split, but not really, since Scott's still gonna fight his way through the Test Your Might Spire, and the next duo on the rung are the Katyanagi twins. Yes, Ramona dated twins at the same time. And because we love some good literary parallels, the twins are also the next band in the Battle of the Bands that Sex Bob-omb have to go through, and this is where we get introduced to the Katyanagi twins. We know literally nothing about these two. We don't even know their first names. During the battle, the twins literally blow the roof off the venue. Scott and crew are attacked by wavy water dragons, but then the band conjure up this King Kong looking thing to fight, and Bob-omb's kaiju ends up winning, and Scott gets a one-up, which will probably come in handy later. Again, unfortunately though, Ramona is officially breaking off the relationship because the mysterious guy she was running away from is back, and we find out that the big music mogul who put the whole Battle of the Bands thing together is the same guy named Gideon. Whack final boss. Hopefully, the DLC is better. And because Gideon signed Sex Bob-omb, saying Scott since he doesn't want to be under Gideon, Scott's got nothing now. Which means we get a very sad, very short montage of Scott being sad while the song he made for Ramona plays. But there's still hope to win her back because Gideon, not knowing when to quit and just win, calls Scott to tell him that it would be weird if everyone but him were at the grand opening of his new venue. Just an unnecessary dick move. Scott shows up to see his old band playing without him, and Ramona's seemingly like she doesn't even really want to be there. Scott gets the Power of Love upgrade, which comes with a flaming katana, so that's cool, and he's using it to kill a bunch of nameless goons. Unfortunately, for the fourth time now, that sword is immediately destroyed once it's a 1v1 between Gideon and Scott. With Scott at the mercy of Gideon, you know it has to be another ass pull waiting to happen, but this time it's Knives coming to the rescue with some very large knives. But she's not there to help Scott, she's there to fight Ramona, so now we've got two fights going on. There's fighting, there's action, there's back-breaking moves, but once Scott comes clean about cheating on Knives with Ramona, he gets stabbed in the back by Gideon. So while his brain starts to shut off in death, he talks to Ramona, who tells him why she's attracted to Gideon and that it's really only because she's got a chip that seems to mind control her. But Scott gets another chance thanks to that one up, so he's speed running the boss fight encounter, which lets him get the power of self-respect katana, which is much more powerful than that stupid love power up from earlier. Scott makes quick work of Gideon this time, but when he comes back, we see that Gideon knows sword no jutsu, so it takes the combined power of Knives and Scott to fight him, while Ramona just kinda stands there. I mean, she helps a little, but not really. Once they do finally bring him to his knees though, he starts going on his own version of the Jamal Smith whack video, but then Scotty just kicks his head into little coin-shaped pieces, so he's finally done. But then Scott's dark version pops up that they call
Nigga Scott. That's gotta be racist. There's no way.
Putting that to the side, off camera they talk their differences out and they become friends, but when Ramona tries to leave, Knives tells Scott to chase after her since that was the entire premise of the movie, so Scott and Ramona walk through a magical door to their next adventure, while the movie ends on the continue screen of a Yakuza game because it's the exact same font. Okay, now that the story's out of the way, what did I think? Now, this is one of those movies that I know has been talked about to death, but I'm still gonna talk about it some more since I went and read all 6 volumes. Well, I mean, that was the plan until I saw this again and fell into a slight depression. Didn't play the game though because that's an infinite amount more work. So Scotty's Pilgrimage is a pretty good adaptation, but there's still little differences like Scott taking a wellness retreat that never happens in the movie, or Envy getting involved with Gideon, but like, who cares? The vibes, and most importantly, the door to nowhere are all still there. They made up Scott's love of Pac-Man lore for the movie though, which actually makes this movie much worse. The rest of the story and interactions are pretty much the same too, but since the movie doesn't have the time to fit everything in, some characters like Knives' parents are only talked about shortly, and the time frame of the story is much shorter in the movie. Notably, and luckily though, the most significant change is Scott not being unbearably horny, and coming from me, that's actually a problem. There's still some things ripped right from the comics, and even though I went in reverse order, it was nice to see so much of the movie being faithful to the comics. And then it isn't. Again, there's a bunch of reasons why, but I really feel like one of the major things that's missing is the character development. All of the exes, including Envy, are all one note, and while I do think that all of the actors' performances are great, they're all just kinda playing the same character. I mean, the Katyanagi twins don't even say anything in the movie, but that was because the actors literally don't speak English, so I guess that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, I love the bad guys, but man, it just felt like when you make a new character in an RPG with a different backstory, but still play the game the exact same way. Something else that I don't think the movie really nails from the comic is that even with Scott's multiple flaws, the overall story is about growing up. Knives is like a completely different character by the end of the books, but in the movie, her change and character in general is just way more subdued. And because of that lack of character development that I just mentioned, we also lose out on interactions like this between Envy and Scott, where we can actually see the issues that they had when they were together and how they've grown since, or in Scott's case, not really grown too much. But let's actually start talking about the movie itself a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, I really did enjoy watching this movie. It's funny, like way funnier than I thought it would be. All the little gaming aesthetics and references, except for Pac-Man, were cool, but I feel like I would have appreciated this way more if I saw this when it first came out, or at least back when I was in high school. That's not to say that I think the movie is outdated or doesn't hold up. I think that it definitely does, and for the gaming references at least, I'm glad that they focused more on titles that transcend trends and weren't just whatever was popular in 2010. I was still playing Halo 2 and Sonic 06, so I don't really know what was going on at the time. And there's a lot of gaming references too that I only found out from research, like there being a Ninja Gaiden reference, a Street Fighter reference, and even an Earthbound reference. And you can tell that Edgar Wright really cared about the source material and transferring all those gaming references in the best way that he could. Although you could probably tell from the recap part, I really did grow to like how this movie really just doesn't give a fuck about any rules to anything. It just does what it wants to keep the story going. Usually I like there to be some type of consistency and constant rules to the world, and this movie says, fuck that, here's some cool stuff and you're gonna enjoy it. And you know what? I did. In fact, this movie feels like one of those late 2000s parody movies with how the movie just moves on, and especially with how many random stars are in this. I mean, even without the big names or the ones I made jokes about, they got Katara and the only reason I watched the first two Pitch Perfect movies. Okay, I'm rambling now. Let's talk about the acting real quick. I firmly believe that Michael Cera is just reading the lines however he would say it in every movie he's in, so let's just talk about everyone else. Now, my simping aside, I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead did a really good job making Ramona this cool and aloof character, but when she's more emotional, especially during the end, you can tell that there's pain behind that cool aesthetic, and yeah, that's super cliche at this point, but she does a really good job of conveying it in a believable way in a movie where the vegan police are a thing. I also really loved Ellen Wong's performance because she really pulls off the sad, naive girl really well, and every time she did the little teary-eyed thing, I felt that. Seeing Chris Evans being a dick is always great, and I've already simped enough for Aubrey Plaza and Brie Larson, so I'll just say they're great too, and move on. And it's not like I could forget Wallace. Oh, Wallace. If only everyone had someone like you in their lives. Kieran did great, even though he had almost no impact on the story at all, but you know, it was just nice to see him. And that's really it, actually. I didn't really talk about the director Edgar Wright too much, but that's because I've only seen Baby Driver, and I feel like I watched Hot Fuzz back when I would sneak and watch HBO back in the day, but I don't really remember. In case you couldn't tell for some reason, I'd highly recommend watching this one for yourself, especially because a lot of the jokes in this movie really require you to actually watch it yourself. But let me know what you think. Was this movie like playing through a water level, or was it an underrated gym you just need to play? I mean, watch. Let me know in the comment section below, mayhaps like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.